Hello, hello. Okay, so obviously I couldn't leave. Hmm. I couldn't leave good enough alone, so I, of course, had to do some experiments on the front suspension. And one of my pet peeves at the moment is how to lower the steering box. Now, this guy here is already one stud lower than this, but there's potential to lower it by half a stud more. And I would like to lower it because this would give us a lot more room for the engine in the engine bay. And of course, the lower this is, the more responsive the steering, because this guy is then closer to the steering knuckle. So this is the setup we had. No, it isn't the setup we had till now, because this is the setup I made today. Uh, but it is better than what we had, but it's still crap. This is going to be better, uh, but I would like to see what we can do to lower it by half a stud more. The effects on the steering are quite significant. But me and Leon have, of course, worked on the rear suspension. Hello, Kevin. Uh, we have worked on the rear suspension, and of course, what we have done is a true masterpiece in compactness. Uh, so this is basically our leaf spring rear suspension. Works like a charm. Of course, the springs are at the moment of an undetermined length. I just left them longer, I guess, and we need to see where we are going to mount them. So then we can use shorter plates. I don't know, or maybe this is, or maybe it'll turn out that this is fine. And I like the fact that, contrary to this, they are thinner, which looks more realistic and gives us more room to mount stuff. And of course, the differential casing with the box sections has turned out to be really nice. There's very little movement here. I really need to press very hard, and there's still potential for reinforcement here. So this is good. And of course, the axle itself is completely without any stress. It is not load bearing, even though here you can see a 2x1 brick going through the leaf. This guy here is not under stress. It's being pushed down by this, uh, locked in here. So it isn't under any sort of stress. So the axle going through it is not load bearing. So that's cool. That was also one of the goals that we had. And the whole thing is actually very light on parts. This was my wish, because I wanted to be light and sturdy at the same time. And I think this is basically what we were aiming for. Okay, we are going to, of course, replicate the other side today, so you will see exactly how this is built inside. But for now, uh, let's toss this away and let's continue work on the front suspension. Yeah, very little friction. This is how I like it. friction where where you want it, and no little or no friction where you don't want it. Okay, so now we have these two guys. In any case, we are going to use, if if everything else fails, we are going to use this one, which of course, because this guy is mounted one stud further up front than this one, we are going to have to rebuild the whole suspension bridge again. Yeah, but I would like to lower this setup. You see, the light bluish gray lift arm is basically the lowest point that we can mount this. The limiting part, of course, is this gear. Because it must not come in contact with the lift arm. But at the same time, it must be as close to it as possible, because this lift arm simulates. Come on! Oh yeah. It simulates our wishbone. So we do not want the gear hitting the wishbone, but we want for it to be as close to the wishbone as possible. So that's our that's holy shit. Okay, maybe I was just being dumb. I was being dumb as a rock, but I just thought of it. Of course, if I put in this, naturally it'll be lower. So let's see. Okay. Why have I not put this in? Yes, very simple. Because in this case, it's not possible. But we're still going to try and do something, because this is too beautiful to let go. Something has to happen out of it. I'm not smart. I'm just I don't know. I'm fooling around. Okay. This is a possible solution, but then we have to think of a different way to mount this, which is not such a bad idea, I think. If we look at the possible setup here, I would mount it just the whole support one stud higher. Then it should be, oh come on, focus camera. Then it should be just about right. Hey mom. It should be just right. Now the only way to find out is to build it, I guess. Yeah. But as I well, I experimented with this, and it could be that we will have to use the longer one. Come on, the longer one. So it'll be like here, but it'll be as close. It'll be as close to the lift arm as possible. So let's take the suspension bridge out yet again and see what we can do. My native language is Slovenian, so it's not English, of course, to nobody's surprise. I have a thick Slavic accent, I guess. Okay. So what we need to do here is to mount this one stud higher. It will probably not be as stiff as it is now, I guess, but there's really no other choice here. It may even be more elegant than it is now. Oh well, let's try and see what we can do. Where are you from? Okay, so this needs to be there no matter what. Oh, nice! I have a friend from Ukraine. He lives in Finland now. Okay. So, where is our part? The way I see it, we can mount one part of it more elegantly as it was before. So, like this, and instead of this, and now we have to find a solution for. Oh my god, how is it possible that this is. There's so little light. Okay, so let's see what we can do about this guy. Probably the best solution is the simplest solution. So I would basically just use something like this. And I guess we'll call it a day for now. Since we really want to just test if this is going to work and what effect this has on the steering geometry and the feel of the steering. So let's replicate this on the other side. Wait a minute. Ah, Jesus. Well, it's a shame, but yeah, this is a little higher than I would like to, but there's really nothing we can do. I guess the crank will have to have enough room here. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. We will cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay. There's a nice opportunity for later. A nice opportunity to to make things a little sturdier. Okay. Which one? The E30 in real life or the model? The model is disassembled, so there's no progress on that front. The real life car is at the moment in my workshop. The front is disassembled, the engine is out, and I'm probably going to do something this fall. I basically have a spare body for it, which needs some grinding and rust repair, and then it needs to be prepared for paint, basically. And then after it's painted, all of the parts from the old car, from the crashed one, are going to be swapped over. Oh. Wait, what? Oh. Ah, of course. I forgot something. Now I'm very curious how this will turn out to be. Uh, oh, oh god, this is going to be pretty. Okay, we got interrupted a little bit. Sorry about that. I have no idea why. Um, oh, really? I I don't know. I guess I'm flattered. Uh, Congratulations. Well, I was always interested in cars. Uh, so crap. So I'm basically self-taught. I wrenched a lot on cars. I was interested in the engineering, uh, why things are designed the way they are, why cars have all of the suspension geometry, what's the purpose of that, uh, and then of course when I built my own models, I was interested in making them better. And of course, if you want to make something better, you need to know why it's bad in the first place and what the ultimate goal is. So then you're basically forced to learn how to make things better. Okay, now let's see what's going to happen here. Okay, we are way too high. But what did we say? Ah, yes. We're not going to use that. We're going to use this one. Yes. And for this one, oh, of course. Ah, okay. Um, if we want to use if we want to use this guy here, which would of course make this even lower, what we have to do is we have to. Come on, why is this so dark? Man, let me bring in another light. There's already so much light in this room. Okay, So we need to bring this another stud to the front. So we need to take this out once more. So another, we touched on modularity a few times in this channel. And I cannot stress how important modularity is, even when you're building something like this, when you have to take, for example, a module like the suspension bridge out and put it back in. You take it out, put it back in. Imagine if this would be a Lego model, or an official Lego model, where everything is built in and you are designing the model for everything to be completely built in. So every time you have to change something, you have to disassemble everything. This is crazy. That's why really I really subscribe to the philosophy of modularity. Modularity is superior. Okay, so let's see how are we going to approach this problem. I guess it doesn't help that the suspension bridge is black. Okay, so we want this guy to be here. Let's see what are our options. What are our options? Of course, we want to use something where let me. There's so much light in this room already that I'm really going blind, and yet on camera it looks so dark. Okay, and there's a ring, LED ring around the camera. This one, yeah, I guess. Thing is, we need to consider which one. This one. Keep in mind what you're trying to do. Oh, come on, focus. Yeah, but I don't see how we are going to mount it. This is actually, while I like this part, at the moment it's really not the right part. I mean, this one would be ideal. Focus, focus. Oh God, camera. This one would be ideal because it would allow us to basically move this for free. Just put in this part and we can move it to the front. I don't know how we are going to power the car, so we're going to use just this part, this one. We are probably going to rebuild the suspension bridge again in the future, but I just want to install it and see if the geometry is correct, or if it's what we want. If it's not, we'll remove it anyway. So What reads like timing? Okay. So it's one stud more to the front. Okay, let's change this one as well. Okay. One more. I don't know if you are as curious as me, but I'm really curious how this will turn out. Okay. Now, the only thing that worries me is that now we have quite a small gap here for anything engine related. But I guess it'll be fine. The car will be powered by something electric. I don't know what yet. I need to research a bit, but we're going to make it fully Lego electric. So no special motors that are not Lego. The philosophy behind this car is that we're building it as if we are making an official model. So no modified parts whatsoever, no illegal building techniques if we can avoid it. I mean, I guess this is illegal. The torsion bar suspension is illegal, but you know. Oh. Okay. That's actually a good suggestion. Let's see. Yeah, could be. Well, I don't know if it's already way too good. Right now, it's just an experiment. We'll see. I'll take this out so we have more room. Okay, we wanted to use this one. Okay. Oh, surprise, surprise. Look at that. It is in the perfect position. It's as low as possible. See, so we don't have a large something here. And now we can lower it even more because we are going to use this one instead of the 8 stud instead of this one. So there we go. Come on. There we go. So it's it's using as little space as possible in the engine bay. That's the goal here. But of course, this is already very low in the engine bay. You have to understand that at right height, this is going to be the right height. So this is the fully extended suspension when the car is on jacks, and this is at right height. So it's pretty low in the car, I guess. So there's plenty of room for engine stuff here. Especially later when we do the electric motor, there's more than enough room for electric motors, I guess. Anyway, let's let's see what we can do now with the steering. Okay, I'll just use this one like that. We are going to make V8, of course, a model V8, because the Charger in stock had an inline six. The very base models had an inline six, and the rest of the cars had V8s. So V8 it will be, no matter what. Come on, okay. Okay, now let's see. This is probably going to be different now than it was before. This is absolutely different. Now I need to see where this all is in relation. Sorry, my hands are in the way. E4, I4, maybe, but I think it'll be okay. There will be not enough space. I barely fit the i4 in the E30, and the E30 was built from the get-go with the i4 in mind. I don't think we are going to have the space. As much as I would love to, there's not going to be enough room. Okay. This looks okay. Well, the small cylinder engine, the E30 did fit the small cylinder engine. If I mean, if we do an E30, or what the car I would prefer to do is the compact. After we're done with the Charger, we can do a compact with the E40 in mind. It's not that the engine isn't strong enough. The problem is space. There's absolutely not going to be room for the i3, for the i4, except if we want it to stick out of the bonnet. The E30 suspension was designed for the E3 to be as low as possible, and I don't think we quite managed this here. It's just too tall. You need to understand that the i3 is, I think it's even a stud taller than this, like this, and it's 7 studs wide here at the bottom. Yeah, but not quite. It's not the same as we discussed, because the E30 and the inline four, small cylinder inline four, were built in this era. So with those parts that we have here. So hello. Okay, so let's check the geometry here, because this is something I did a few times today. So I cannot feel any bumps there, which is good. And now let's mount the wheels and see if the steering geometry is actually sound, or if there's some weird angles going on while we steer the car. Come on. Okay. Okay. The wheels look straight, which is good. Keep in mind that, okay, we are going to lower it with our adjustable torsion bar suspension. Okay. There we go. To something, let's say, still need a little bit more. I need to lower it to something resembling the ride height of the car, because this is where we can actually judge. Yes, those are Lego wheels and tires. They are from the Batman set. I think they are perfect for the Charger. Okay, let's see. Okay, the first snuggles here. The first problem is, of course, come on. I need a longer stick. Yes, let's do it like this. So these here are bumping against the torsion bar. So we need to do something about that. That's not good. Even if the car is not loaded, they still bump. When the car is, of course, jacked up, you can see it pulls the steering a little bit down, so that it doesn't bump. But now that it's at right height, it kind of gets stuck. Not sure what to do here, because at the moment we don't have any bumps here. But all we can do is use a thin lift arm here. Let's change this and see what effect this has, if any. If I would be able to use LP Power wheel hubs, it would be even better, because those Lego wheel hubs are just, I mean, the whole reason I made the LP Power wheel hubs with the turntables is that there's so much slack in those. So I wanted something with a little bit less slack. Yeah, we can already see that this is bumping into it. That's not good. No. I'm a black belt in Aikido. Hmm. Let's see. Maybe the effect on the bump steer is not going to be uh, as big as we fear. No, it's spelled with an A anyway. Okay, maybe, I don't know. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens when we hold the linkage so it doesn't move. And now let's see what happens to the wheel when it travels up and down. Yeah, there is bump steer present. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So this needs to be addressed. Let's first see how it steers. Yeah, there's no, it doesn't bump against the springs anymore. But now we have introduced some bump steer. And the steering is actually, the steering is very nice and responsive. There's really no force required to steer. Let's let's check it up a little bit. Okay, so we can now depress it as if some weight of the car is on it, and still it's perfectly steerable. And I'm actually compressing it, and still I'm putting a lot of weight on it. It has wide tires, and still it's much easier to steer than the Land Rover Defender from Lego. So yes, moving the steering link on the wheel hub. One might think that I have tried this today, but we'll take another look at it. We'll take another look at it. Okay, so there's really two options. Moving this one stud, a half a stud up, or moving this half a stud down. These are basically our two options. Now, which one you think is better, or let's say which one is more realistic? Because honestly, they both look very unattractive to me. Neither of them is really good or easy to implement. it's hard to see on camera, but you can clearly see in real life that this link and the A arm are not parallel to each other, which of course then causes the bump steer. But it's not nice to see that the linkage itself is very stiff. So I'm happy with this. We just need to adjust everything slightly for geometry. We have camber. I mean, the camber when the car is at right height is about neutral, and then you see it changes. When you go in hard into a corner, the camber changes so that the wheel stays parallel to the ground. Well, the only thing I can do, really, would be this. This would probably eliminate the bump steer. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, this is absolutely too weak. But I was just testing. I was just testing if that's the solution before we go and rebuild everything. No, as I said before, the whole point of this build is to not modify anything. We are not modifying parts. Super gluing it would be the convenient and easy solution, but we do not want that. Absolutely not. Over my dead body. So, yeah, we have to do something on the wheel hub side. We have to do something. Now the problem, yeah, now the problem here is that we are very limited in what we can do. One of the, I mean, if we had more meat, so to speak, to work with, one could do something like this. See? One could do something like this. And, well, and do it like this. Yeah, but the problem is that we have very little meat to work with. But we have one, two. Yeah, it might work. Let's try it. It's not going to be very sturdy. Let's see. We'll have to reinforce it more, but come on. Go in, you little bitch. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. Come on. Sometimes you really like the parts to be very grippy, and there's days where you just want them to be loose. Okay, so this is one solution. It, I don't know, it's not perfect, not far from it. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I would not never use anything other than Lego hubs. Axles are just junk. Axles are completely useless, and you have to constantly then uh, adjust the wheels in case they've slipped out. And the wobbliness of axles is even more than this. I mean, look at this. This is just this is horrible. There's so much slack. Okay, let's install this and see if there's any improvement. Okay, so the bump steer is gone. That's for sure. Bump steer is gone. And full movement is also possible. So I would say for now, we're going to leave it like this. Not really. I mean, the axle through the hub works only. The axle through the hub works only on the rear suspension. Only here, but even here, you see there is an axle going through the hub, and still there's slack. Yes, of course, we could extend the axle to the wheel, but this would, in our case, this would just complicate things. But you know, you can I mean, a little self promotion. You can always order LP power wheel hubs, which do not have this problem. So these would be uh, my preferred solution. Yeah, yeah. I know we could put it through the wheel, but then every time we try to remove the wheel, we would just have more problems, and I don't want that. Okay, so let's replicate this on this side, and then let's see where we are. You can order them on my website, www.lppower.com. When we put this car on the road, I will also change the wheel hubs to the LP Power wheel hubs. So we are using these so that every engineering bit that we do is compatible with those. So if someone just has those at home and doesn't want to use the LP Power wheel hubs, they can. They're they are not you are not forced to use the LP Power wheel hubs to build any of this. This is all unmodified stock Lego. And of course, when it goes outside, I will change them to the LP Power wheel hubs in order to remove the slack. This is just for because outside every little bump means that the wheels are going to wobble. And since I drove enough remote control cars made out of Lego outside, I know that you want as little slack in everything as possible, from wheels to suspension. Come on. Ah, here you are. Has anybody seen the Donut Media video where they drove the Lego Bugatti Veyron on a remote controlled chassis? Yes. I mean, this car will be both, actually. We are going. The initial build is going to be without remote control parts, just a model. But then we are going to pull out the drivetrain and install an electric drivetrain. Yeah, it was a Chiron. Have you seen what they did to it? So they mounted it on a chassis of a remote controlled off-road truck or something like that. And they only used the exterior panels just so it looked the way. Uh, so, and did you see? How it crashed at the end? I mean, it crashed. It basically rolled over. It rolled over, and um, the interesting part is the reason why it rolled over. Okay, this all looks very fine to me. Let's mount the wheels. The reason why it rolled over is lies in the chassis itself, because if anybody of you has ever worked on remote control cars, especially the trucks, you have noticed that every single bit of suspension has slack in it. You would expect those cars to have no slack, but no, they have a ton of slack. And so if you drive them on the road too fast, they get very wobbly. So at one point then you lose control, because the suspension, there's just so much movement in the suspension that there's no more control. Uh, and I mean, one of my dreams would be to have to take a Lego Bugatti Chiron, discard everything inside, just keep the outside looks, and rebuild the chassis to be proper, and install 6 or 8 of the old RC buggy motors in it. The Lego buggy motors that are extremely rare and extremely expensive, and drive that. I bet that car would be a lot faster than the Donut Media buggy, and it would not crash because you would not lose control. So, oh my god, this looks actually, I would say, this is as close to perfect as we can make it for now. Well, uh, I don't swim in money. The motors are 50 euro a piece for one motor. So even if I use just 6 motors, that would be 300 euro. Plus, I need to buy the Bugatti model, which would be another 250, and we haven't done anything else. So I don't know. It's if someone decides to sponsor me, Lego itself or a company, I don't care. I'm doing it on live stream. Uh, but until then, uh, we're first going to finish the charger, so that we have at least one LP Power model that everybody can build themselves, or maybe you are building along. I don't know. After this stream, I will make more pictures, so you can build this in the meantime while you wait for the next stream. I don't have any money. I mean, 500 euros isn't pocket money, if you know what I mean. I do live in a house, but a house is a lot of costs, and I still have cars to rebuild and maintain. So yeah, I'm probably just already spending too much money on Lego. So if we put the car on at right height, yeah, you cannot see it. I need a more flexible mount camera. Yeah, I prefer LP power engines, but the problem is taking the air supply with you. That's the problem. The engine itself would be more powerful and probably faster, but it's much more convenient with electric motors. It's hard to show this right now, but you see the you see how the wheels change angle when they turn. This is of course all caused by the geometry, so caster camber, and of course when the car is going into a corner, the wheel stays flat on the ground here because of the smaller wishbone here, and the wishbone pulls the wheel closer to it, increasing the camber. So when cornering, this causes the wheel to stay flat with the surface and maximize grip. Yeah, there's so many plans, but so little time. I cannot do everything. Okay, uh, the front suspension is for the most part sorted. I mean, there's no mysteries in the geometry. Uh, we located all of the parts. What's left to do at a later stage, once we have the firewall and all the other stuff, is to fine tune bits of the suspension. So there there is a few changes that we are going to do, but right now we are going to do the rear of the car with the rear suspension, so that we can then combine them and see how high everything needs to be, where the doors, the A pillar, and all of the other stuff needs to be. So let's put this aside and start on this. So uh, last time that we tried to work on this, I thought we would have the springs like this. So we would make the axle and then put the springs on, so on the bottom, of course, on the bottom like this. However, this meant that the springs were actually too low. So I discarded this idea, and with a few experiments and hours of thinking, I decided this would be the best solution. So the spring is actually as close to the axle as possible, so that when we put on the wheel, see, basically where the spring is, the rocker panel of the car, if you imagine, come on, would be about that, about here. So it would cover the front of the spring. If it was too low, then the spring would actually look out of the bottom of the car, which we do not want. That's why I decided to put it closer to the axle, so it will be like in the real car. Yeah, we are now going to make the other side, which means that we are going to replicate all of this, and so let's do it. Which ones did I take? No, 10 style. Yes. Okay. And then, of course, I use this. And I think, yeah, there were these two. So that's our leaf spring assembly. Okay, so now to the other bits. It looks pretty realistic, I guess. I'm going to make a Patreon account, and if anybody really wants us to make the Bugatti, you can chip in a little bit and we may do it. What am I missing? This. Oh yes, like this. The new this differential is the only one even worth considering. This is the differential that Lego should have brought out 10 years ago, at least. This is the only differential that matters. I will explain why in a bit. Just let us replicate this, and then we're going to go to the differential. Yeah, more of these. And two more of these. Okay. So. Oh, come on. I know I. Yeah, here it is. I put one aside. Okay. Ah, yes. Okay. So usually, what Lego would do, they would put axles, axles in these, and mount them with axles. The problem is with axles that with axles you get slack. You have slack here, and then you have even more slack here. So in every construction involving these, I use at least one pin. I mean, I have to, otherwise it's just, so this locates it and there's no slack. And on this, on the lower side, we have an axle. The car is in 1:8 scale. We calculated this with the wheels. So the diameter of the wheels on the original car, and then we scaled everything according to this. Come on. Okay. There we go, I think. No, this is missing. Okay, now we are set. Okay. Modularity, of course. And I want everything to be, we need to be able to disassemble everything, just like on the real car. Ah. Okay, so our half axle, which we now stick in. There we go. Our leaf sprung rear suspension. Now, let's see how much this actually flexes when the suspension is compressed. Yes, the leaves are attached as stiff as they need to be. And they are actually locating the rear axle in all of the, so front to back and left to right. So it's like this. No, I'm neither. I'm not an engineer, and I'm certainly not an engineer at NASA. So when we compress the springs, the rear axle is perfect. This is very nice. I like it. There is what's happening here is this black bit so the black lift arm here is scraping on the tire, and it's doing this because of this. A reason why I really hate the Lego wheel hubs. I mean, there's everything here is absolutely unmovable except the slack in the wheel hub itself. So in the bearing, it's this. With the LP power wheel hub, this is not going to happen. So, but we have to live with it. Nothing. It's like this from birth. It was always like this. Yeah, it would. I mean, if you build it yourself, you can use the through axle. You can use the through axle. I mean, there's going to be an axle here anyway, in order to mount something that's going to look like. Oh, come on. Like a dog dish hubcap. For example, you know, like this. But that's late. That's for later. Okay, so now let's go to the differential. Let's go to the differential and why I like it. For this, I will have to come on. Let me show you. Let me show you the difference. So, let's say this is the standard differential, and this is the new differential. Okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's fine. I'm living with it my whole life, and it's not a disability at all. So, okay. So, this is the the normal setup that you find in most Lego cars with differential nowadays. The problem with this is that it's extremely unrealistic. Uh, it's this is a I think it's a gee I even forgot how this is a 38 tooth wheel or something like that. Uh, no, and this is a 20 tooth gear. So the difference between them is quite small, and consequently, you cannot transfer a lot of torque from the drive shaft to the wheels. No, it's not. It's not 28. Wait, is it? Yeah, of course it's 20. Yeah, it's smaller than the 32. Yeah, yeah, it's probably 28. Yeah, you're right. Uh, so 28 and 20. That's too close to one to one. That's really useless. So uh, this guy here presents us with 28 to 12. That's much closer to a realistic gear ratio. Uh, uh, for example, a realistic gear ratio would be something close. Yeah, the red one is the same as this one. It's the same, but because this red one is double bevel and thicker, it's closer to the center hole by half a stud, which allows us to use the smaller 12 tooth gear, which means that now you can transfer a lot more torque to the wheels, just like you would in a real car. Uh, and this is absolutely better in any possible way. Uh, and that's why absolutely I want to use this in any future vehicle. And on top of that, at extreme, some people have reported that this can even be a sort of limited slip differential. I don't know why, because it really drives very smoothly. But I guess some people have put a lot of torque and load on each side, and yeah, I guess. I don't see it, but I guess. Yeah, this is not going to break. This is a very good differential. So that's why we are going to use it. But of course, yeah. Before we continue with the differential here on the axle, we need to discuss a few other things. So we have our nice differential, and then we put in our gear. Yeah, you can. I would not build it the way some people will, but I don't know. A mechanical diff lock can be built in because here there's room for a clutch. But this I don't know. This makes it too wide. I don't know. I don't need it. Anyway, what we need to keep in mind. You see, as with everything Lego, uh, the uncareful builder will not consider this. So imagine this, but you now put in one of these directly like that. You attach an axle, and then you put load on this. You run it, and then suddenly gears start skipping here, and you come crying to mama and say, "Yo, this is shit. The Lego the gears are skipping on my differential. Look at the damage." Uh, but that's not the problem of this. This can transfer a lot of torque, more than you can put on it, but it needs to be properly engineered. That's the problem. The thing is that when you apply load and allow this gear to deflect, then you will have gears skipping in here. So we do not want this gear to deflect at all. This is one of the most important connections in a differential, and in real cars you also have this. The small axle is actually quite long. It has two bearings on each side, so that the car manufacturers themselves make sure that this deflection cannot happen. As long as these two don't deflect, they will not skip gears. So this is the key to transferring power. Yeah, I mean you see them on Facebook or on Eurobricks or whatever. Plenty people who come complaining that gears are breaking, and you see when they post pictures of their constructions, you see that there's so much built-in friction in the whole thing that it's absolutely no wonder that gears are breaking. Okay, so we need to then engineer something here to hold our axle. And again, we need to use as few parts as possible to do this. Just like Lego. Lego are being really skimpy with bricks, and we are going to be skimpier because what we want is a car that's light as possible. The lighter the car, the more the engine will be able to accelerate it. Nah, I'm not an engineer. Not by trade anyway. But I try to think like an engineer. So what we need is at least a 5-stud axle here. So the center would be fixed with two of these, so it cannot move up in and out. And then we need to engineer something to prevent it from going left and right. I mean, let's say we would use this. What can we use then? Let's see. This maybe. I mean, we need to avoid up and down and left and right. Actually, we can use something even simpler. See, we must not complicate simple things. Of course. I'm not sure if this is going to work the way I intended, but let's try it. Yeah, see, this setup is relatively simple, but because we are using axles here, the slack that you can hear here, it is the slack in the axles here. So we need to use pins here, not axles. And this part, this triangle is kind of useless for this. Yeah, I mean, everything else is really going to give us basically we are going to get a higher parts count. This is what I don't like. It is solvable, of course, for example, with these guys. No, yeah, that's correct. Okay. This might not be good as well, but we need to try it. Okay. Oh my god. Yes. This is a whole other universe. Yeah, I know of Sheepo's Garage, but to be honest, I have not checked on him in quite a while. So we still have some slack in it. But this is slack just in the axle, not in the mounting itself. See? Um, I don't know what to do with this. How to solve this? I mean, technically, we could go overboard and do something crazy like, I don't know, using a half. So, using basically this guy here, this guy, and then making some sort of contraption here that would prevent it from doing this, but it would probably not prevent it. It would just make it slightly less wobbly. It's better than nothing, I guess, but it's still too much slack for my taste. Because when you force it, really. So when we try to force it, yeah, yeah, it might spreading the bushings. The problem is that they are going to compress themselves over time. That's really no solution. Just like when you have a construction and every now and then you have to press it together to hold. Uh, that's bad engineering. That's not what we want. We want something that when we click it together, we can leave it. If it holds, it's engineered well. If it doesn't, and we have to constantly press everything together, uh, this means back to the drawing board. Um, I think this is good enough for our model. This is not going to skip. I mean, I was holding it like here, like this, and twisting this, and there's ah oh, there's never going to be as much pressure as I just applied. So it's going to hold. It'll be fine. Now the connector will not be of any use. Uh, the part in the middle is absolutely inconsequential for holding this in line. Okay, so uh, this is our differential. Now, I have absolutely no idea in which direction we should make it turn. So I am going to make it like BMW does it, and it's going to be this is going to be the front. So like this. The car is going that way. Um, yeah. For this, of course, we need to take a few of these things apart. And luckily, everything is modular. Well, it depends on which direction the engine spins. If the engine spins in the wrong direction, then the car would go backwards. But for a model that you would just push with your hands, it's irrelevant. It's important later on when we are going to make it remote controlled. But we can always flip it. So that's not really a problem. There we go. Our differential is done. That's all there is to the rear suspension. Now we have to engineer the shackles left and right. And of course, since we are here, we are going to now engineer the rear part of the chassis so that we can then attach it to the front part of the chassis. One more thing. There's always one more thing. So we have now a choice of how to actually drive this. We can use the Lego CV joints, which I think are nice, I guess. Of course, it would be preferable if the CV joint would be as like this, but that's not gonna happen because it's too short. Or we can use the heavy duty LPA power CV joints, which are also used in the Mustang. No electric. So these actually don't allow that much of movement, but they are going to be plenty enough for our purposes. They allow more than enough. Yeah, the pulley version is my favorite as well, because there's no limit on the torque this can transmit. These are the joints that I use in the Mustang, and if anybody saw the video with the burnout was with these. Not these exact ones, they're still in the car, but this type of joint was used because this is the only joint that managed to transfer torque without braking. So, okay. For now, we don't need it. Okay. Um, so the leaf springs are are connected on a fixed position in the front and a movable shackle in the rear. So this is done so that when the springs compress, they change length. So the rear one is there to compensate for this change. I will use this, basically connectors, an axle made out of connectors. This is as strong as it's possible because we don't want it to torsionally twist, or at least as little as possible. Okay, so let's go look at some pictures. Let's see. Okay. Um, I don't know. Usually, we go 2.5 hours. I don't know, until I'm tired or you guys are fed up with me. Um, so I would, before we end the stream, I would like to do something with the shackles on the leaf springs. So this is the underside of the real car. Here is the mounting point of the front of the leaf spring, and this is the movable part. This is the movable mounting point of the rear of the leaf spring, and this, of course, is then the area where the axle is allowed to go up and down. Uh, we want to do this with as little material as possible, of course. Uh, and I think we are going to start with the front shackle, and then we engineer the frame rail, so to speak, and then the rear one. Okay, so okay. Uh, there's several ways to then mount. Wait a minute. I will remove. Will I remove the wheels? No, I won't remove the wheels because I would actually like to see where the mount needs to be. It'll probably be, instead of here, it'll be here. Yeah. So the mount, we want to make the mounts in a way that will allow us to quickly remove the whole rear axle. So basically, on each side, we just remove a pin or an axle, and then the whole rear axle can come out. Again, modularity. Uh, let's leave it like this. Since these are now one stud wide, this makes our life a little bit easier. And one thing that we must not forget, this cannot be made like this, for example, and then mounted in a fixed position, so that it's immovable. This part needs to move as well. It just cannot go front to back, so it cannot move like this, but it has to move like this. This is also something we need to keep in mind. In the real car, for example, the classic leaf spring mount is like this, so like this. But of course, we cannot do it like this, because the first thing that will happen is this will break. No, we do not need any links or shock absorbers. The leaf springs locate the rear suspension in its entirety, and they provide the springs. So just like in the front, we did not use a single shock absorber in the front. So everything is done with torsion bars. And we are not going to use a single shock absorber in the rear. No need for that. Okay. So, one way to do this would be, for example, that we actually do use those parts. But oh, come on, this is the front. But we are going to use them like this. Now, depending on where the whole thing mounts. See? So now the leaf spring can pivot around this, but it's fully located here. So it won't be able to go forward and backwards. This is allowed, forward and backwards is not allowed. And in the rear, we have to have something more flexible so that it can pivot. And usually for the rear, I use something different. See, I use this. Come on, where are you? There you are. This. Of course, again, a brick, a plate, sorry. A plate. Oh, we can do it like this. We can do it like this. There we go. Okay, so in the rear, see in the rear, we have a solution where the spring can pivot. So this again is mounted to the car. And you will notice that we are going to have a slight caster to the suspension. I'm going to replace these with 3-stud mounts because that's better. Yeah, like this. So there. There, that's better. That's better. See? Slight caster, which means that the output of the axle isn't basically it goes straight into the current tunnel. There's no bend here. The front one needs to be as stiff as possible. It's going to pivot around the axle. This is just to attach it. I probably use 1x1 bricks even to make it as small as possible. It needs to swing, because when we depress the suspension, this is going to be fixed and the rear has to be movable. But of course we need to now re-engineer this, because this part here, the lower part, is way too low. This is way too low. This will stick out of the rocker panel. So we need to re-engineer this to be as low profile as possible if you want. So let's put this aside and take just a plate to play with, so I don't have to jiggle with the huge axle. Okay, so basically we want it's turned like this, and we want the lower attachment point to be not only as close to this. So basically we could use a 1x1, but even with the 1x1 I would like it to be closer. This is too far. So what you can use is this. This looks lovely. And now let's see. Modified plate with hole. I don't know which ones you mean. Can you post a link to which part you mean? Come on. I'm just experimenting here with my solution. You mean not rockers, you mean shock absorbers. Well, the thing is that Lego shock absorbers, these are not shock absorbers. I mean, technically they are springs. These are just springs. These, if we want to a realistic length, you would need to pair a shock absorber to these, because these do not dampen vibration, they oscillate as well. The problem is that then it would not be fixed. We need something that's not going to move. Yeah, pneumatic cylinders. The problem is that the big ones are too hard, and the small ones do not provide any shock absorbing power at all. Yeah, so this won't work the way I imagined. Maybe this will. Maybe. Yeah. Well, we'll have to use this system. It'll be fine. Yeah. So we'll just use this. The way this is going to stick out, if at all it does, is going to be minimal. So this is what we are going to use. Of course, a two-stat brick, just like we have here. It's going to be a two-stat one. So this way, it cannot move, but we're going to move it to the top, like this, and we can basically have it. Come on, maybe even like this, so that the movable part is on the bottom. They're not that cheap, but they're not really expensive. I mean, I don't know. As I said, I want the pivot to be like this, but I don't want it to move. So I need to have a pivot in any case. It's inevitable. So now what we are going to do here now is we're going to do the whole box section here. I don't know what you mean. It may be that you have a very good point, but right now I cannot imagine what you mean. If you could, I don't know, build something and make a picture or whatever, it would be greatly appreciated, so that I can visualize. going to use the gray parts because with the black ones it's so hard to see. So hard to see what we're doing. And what I'm going to do as well, I'm already going to build in a mechanism to disconnect them. Ah. Yeah, I see where you're getting at. Yeah, I see where you're getting at. That could be possible, yeah. Yeah, that would be the pivot, and this would be fixed. That is actually a great idea. That is a great idea. Moment. Just checking Facebook Messenger. Will you please load? Looks like the stream is sucking my internet connection dry. Man, Facebook, come on. Jesus, that took very long. Yeah. Yeah, that would be a possibility. That would be a possibility. But the suggestion with that the Neppert made, where we take the rear, the same shackle that we have in the rear, and put it in the front, just that the entirety of the shackle is mounted, fixed to the chassis. And here, of course, it's allowed to pivot. That would be ideal because there is no movement here. So this would locate it fixed. There's a very small footprint, as you can see, and it's then easy to mount this to the chassis. We need to just engineer a piece like this that's easily mountable to a chassis. So with, I don't know, with a few pins. I'm going to use the four stud axles, just because they are easier to pull out. We can change them to 3 studs later. Okay, so let's see what we can do that it will be easy and simple to mount. We need, of course, the lower part needs to be an axle hole, because these fit in axle holes. We could use pinholes if this would be convenient, of course. And we put, of course, pins like these, or the bigger black ones in it. Okay. As I said before, we are going to engineer now the whole section here. So the part of the current tunnel and the box sections here that then connect to the rocker panel. But before we do that, we need to consider something. We need to consider how much the body of the car is actually we need to consider how much the body of the car is actually curved inside. See, the body of the car in at the bottom is curved inside, and this means that basically the rocker panel is starting right where the spring is connected to the frame. So there's not a lot of room that we have to play with. Let me just fetch some yeah. A few panels, if you will. So, for example, a panel that could form our rocker. Now, eventually, we would like it to be, I don't know, something like this. And then it would flare out into the rest of the body. I don't know. Or, for example, if, for example, the body of the car would be formed out of those, that would be ideal. Yeah, that's my idea. Uh, I would like this to be mounted to the chassis in a fixed way, and then you see, like this, something along those lines. So basically the top point, and this point would be mounted fixed on the chassis, and then it could not go anywhere. And we can mount them like really sturdy. For example, they could be mounted like this, and then we push. Come on. So, mounting points, and this cannot go anywhere. And at any time we can, of course, remove this bar, and the whole suspension drops out. So let's duplicate this on the other side. Let's see where this takes us. Wrong box. Yeah, I think that's perfect. And this, I guess, would be the lowest part of our chassis. Possibly there will be a gearbox, yeah. But first we need to build the whole car. Then we are going to see what kind of drivetrain it gets. So, because this car is going to be designed to take in several options for drivetrain, we are going to do our best to make as much room for a drivetrain as possible, but there will be limitations, of course. We will not be able to fit anything. I mean, whatever we think of. But for this scale, there will probably be quite enough room. Okay, so I don't know if this is stiff enough or not. In any case, there can be we can move this guy closer to here, but then we limit ourselves. Yeah. I don't know. I think the springs are stiff enough for whatever car we make. So I would leave them as long as they are, and I would grade everything else around this length. I guess if we discover at the point that they are not stiff enough, but I think they are, based on previous experience with leaf springs, we can always, I don't know, experiment with other things, making them longer, shorter, moving this closer to the spring or whatever. Okay. I don't know. Depends. I even frequent the Eurobricks forum very rarely. So I don't know if I even want to, if I have time for this. Maybe if there's a reason, a good reason to, if there's content, I don't know. So here I'm just building the rear shackles just so I get a feeling of the length of car we need to span between the mounting points. Okay, we are building a Lego Dodge Charger. Or let's say a LPA power Dodge Charger. No, it's fine. See, these are the rear shackles that need to be movable. Not a lot, but a little bit movable. And these are now the fronts. The fronts are going to be installed fixedly, so they are not going to move. The axle is, of course, able to move a little bit. Oh, yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, sorry. Sorry. See, and because of the system with the bars, everything is easily removable. Yeah, okay. That makes sense now. Go. There we go. Now it's fine. Okay, so I would say first we need to determine how much room we need to leave the frame of the car until it hits the rear suspension. So I would say if we leave 2 studs, that's plenty. So there's enough wiggle room for everything. Even if someone decides, hey, I want to lower the car a little bit, there's room. Okay. And of course we want the frame rails to be as close to the wheel as possible. So they can be, because of this here, this guy, they can be somewhere here. They can be somewhere here, but there's still a chance of them hitting this guy. So the closest I would dare to put them is here. So I'm sorry, the stream got interrupted for technical reasons. I don't know. Looks like the Ecamm Live servers are overloaded or something. So what we would do is something similar that we did in the front. There's absolutely no need to go overboard, but of course I would do something like this. Just to make, to leave enough room for everything to move, but to have the frames as close to the outside as possible. This of course means that we are going to have a lot of empty space here between the inner the outer side of the fender, and of course the inner structure. This may not be very realistic, but I don't really see. Well, we could technically replace this frame here with something that would allow us to make an empty void here, but I don't know. Maybe later. Right now, we're going to use this. So, as it looks now, we are perfectly aligned for here. So this is one. Okay. Yeah, so we need to engineer something here in order to mount come on, where are you? Here. Okay, so we're going to extend the inner shaft. Really. Like this. Yeah. Like this. See? And now we can mount this and then this. This of course is not in any sort or form a final way of us doing things. This is just like we did in the front suspension. We need to first get some structure in, so that we then can see where everything else goes. I don't know which shape you mean. I don't know which shape you mean. So this is too short. This is slightly too long. Doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter. Come on. Okay. Let's mount the rear shackles, and then we'll see how much wiggle room we actually have here with the spring. Okay, so this is just our how should we say our botch job attempt at creating a chassis, just so we can press on it and see how much room we have. And we can quickly see that this is not enough. This is not enough. We need to raise it by at least one stud. So let's do that. Okay. There we go. Now we're safe. Now we're safe. That's not gonna hit anything. So, okay, let me see which part you mean. Uh, ah, um, yeah, maybe. Maybe we are going to replace it, but it's. I will keep it in mind. That's a good suggestion. But first, I would really like to see the whole geometry of this and how this front is going to shape. So because where's that piece? So the thing is that our rocker panel. So I don't know if we're going to mount it like this or like this. So steeper, I don't know, or if we're going to use this at all. So probably going to mount it like this somewhere. Yeah, somehow like this. I don't know. Let's see. Probably one stud closer to the wheel, like this, because we need to have the rocker panel here already, because the body then flares out. So yeah, the rocker panel will actually be part of the structure of the car. We need to keep this in mind. So this part will be connected to the rocker somehow, and then there will be many more of these frames here at the bottom, and then here will be the tunnel, and we'll combine these together somewhere here where the rear bench is going to be, like in the real car. I did a similar thing in the E30 chassis. So yeah, so now let's replicate this on the other side. We'll combine them just so it's a little bit more solid, and then we can see what to do next. Because when doing chassis like this, we have seen in the front suspension, what you start with is not what you end up with. And since we know this from the start, we experiment until we're happy with the result. But first, you need to really get some structure, just so that you then see. Once we have something, we then can see where it goes. If this makes any sense, then the solutions start to pop up. Ah. Come on. Okay. Oh. Exactly. And engineering is basically fixing problems. Some of them you have created yourself. Some of them were created by others. There we go. Now, let me just finish this, and then we'll talk a little bit more. Because I already see how the end result will be different from what we have here. Okay. Yeah. That's not gonna happen like this. Okay. Okay. So this is just a box which we will then mold into what we want. So you can see here, there we go. This is going to be a nice rear suspension. It's soft enough and stiff enough. Very nice. Okay, so the rear car, the rear bench is somewhere here, I guess, and somewhere here, like this. That's the angle of the rear bench where the seats are mounted. And then the, let's say the C-pillar, that goes to the roof comes in here. And of course, since this is the bench, there needs to be room for the bench. So this part here, this guy, will have to move. This is not going to be the final guy. So the rear bench will extend past the wheel, basically, and be and meet the side of the car here. So the outer skin of the car will also be, because this is a unibody chassis, it'll be part of the weight bearing structure. So of course we are going to have these guys here, because they are the frame rail that's usually present in the car, and we cannot build the frame rail out of lift arms, because the lift arms are just going to bend too much, and the frames are not going to bend. That's why we're using frames here. But here we are going to combine something with angle of the rear bench. There's some lift arms that can create the angle, and then we are going to create part of the floor here. This part here will connect to the floor, and the bench will then uh, will then connect these frame rails to the outer skin of the car, and the outer skin of the car, of course, will extend till the door, and of course will connect to the floor of the car, and then the C pillar that will go here will then, together with the roof, connect to the front of the cars, to the A pillar, which will create the structure, if this makes any sense. So yeah, this guy here is going to change a lot, but now we know what we're working with. Now let's compare the width of the rear suspension to the front suspension. That's always interesting, where we potentially fucked up. But I can see that the rear is slightly wider than the front, at least when the front is raised. But what if we just temporarily adjust it to right height, the actual right height? Wait, something's not right here. What's bent? These angles are not correct. Something's bent, clearly. Okay, that's weird. So something's bent on this after it fell onto the ground, but I cannot clearly see what. This isn't exactly straight yet, and nothing seems to be out of order. That's weird. This is all in. Yeah, I guess it's all right now. Okay, so let's compare widths. Yeah, they are pretty much the same width, give or take a millimeter, so that's fine. The front is slightly narrower, ever so slightly, by maybe a millimeter on each side, so that's pretty much perfect. Okay, so I will call it a night for today. I'm getting tired. Tomorrow there will be no stream. On Monday we are building an inline small cylinder inline force engine, and then we are going to continue with the car on Tuesday, if this is all right with you. So tomorrow no stream. Monday we're building a pneumatic inline small cylinder inline four cylinder for a customer, and then on Tuesday we're continuing with the car. So, and by then I probably will do some research on my own, so I can combine the rear with the front. Nothing fancy, just some height adjustments so I can see where the rear and the front should be. Uh, we will need this because this will determine where the rocker panel mounts in the front, and this will determine the whole floor of the car. That's why this is important. Everything on top here is just arbitrary. This is all going to change. But once we combine the front and the rear, we need to know exactly where the level of the floor is. And the level of the floor, as I saw on the pictures of the real car, uh, come on, is exactly here. So we made this perfectly. So exactly here where this the mount of the front shackle is, this is the floor of the car. The dog dish hubcap, if you take a look at some pictures, the dog dish hubcap is the lower edge of it is just above the lower edge of the lower edge of the rocker panel of the car. So this is just about perfect. And the leaf springs, of course, being a bit harder than the normal suspension, they are not going to settle really much when the car is finalized. So they will be approximately where they are now. There will be maybe, it'll slack just a little bit. When the weight of the car is on, it'll do just this. Nothing fancy. So the rear is pretty much perfect. The front, I need to see where the actual right height of the car is, and then adjust the bump stops accordingly, so that when we extend the suspension fully and set the preload here on our shackles, on our torsion bars. See, because we can, the more preload you add here, the stiffer the suspension. So less preload, softer; more preload, stiffer. The more I add preload here, the stiffer it is. But if I don't add preload, I just adjust the height of the suspension. So if I adjust the height like this, I just turn the knobs a little bit, and the car gets raised a little bit. So this is it for today, and I see you on Monday.